Welcome to Transcending the Rabbit Hole. I'm Brandy Anderson. I'm a spiritual director and Jungian coach on an ever-winding contemplative path of becoming. I'm the author of Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and co-host of Spectral Symposium podcast. I'm joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Annelise and Parker Bess. Annelise is a singer, songwriter, sound healer, and spiritual influencer dedicated to raising human consciousness as she shares her awakening journey on TikTok. Parker is a true knowledge seeker and truth bringer in the realm of esoteric wisdom. Parker has a solid understanding of metaphysical concepts with expertise in the shadowy corridors of secret societies, occult knowledge, and ancient aliens and ufology. We invite you to pry open your third eye and journey with us through the cosmic rabbit hole as we alchemize esoteric insights in a quest for ultimate truth.
Falling down the rabbit hole again.
Welcome back to another episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. Today we're diving into the strange and unsettling idea of Loosh Farms, a reality where human emotional energy is harvested, especially through fear and suffering. Who's feeding off us and why? Are we giving permission without realizing it? And how does love or even Christ consciousness break this system? Let's explore what it means to reclaim our energy and disrupt the machine. Annelise and Parker, it's a privilege to transcend this rabbit hole with you guys.
Brandy.
Hey, Brandy. Great to be here.
Hey. Yeah, great to see y'all. This is a topic that I'm excited about. It's something that you hear about in spiritual circles, but definitely not about in mainstream Christian circles.
Yeah.
But it's deeply fascinating, and I think it answers a lot of questions that people might have about, energetic connections, why people are feeling the way that they're feeling, or they feel stuck in certain cycles of emotions or whatever. So, I guess we should start off by maybe telling our listeners what is Loosh. Some people may not be familiar with it, but it's a term that was coined by Robert Monroe, who had a lot of out-of-body experiences. He learned to astral project, and he took journeys through the astral realm, and he wrote about it. So he has books. I think one is Journeys Out of Body or something like that, or The Journeys of, I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it in the show notes, though. I'll look it up and drop it in the show notes. But in those journeys, Monroe encountered non-physical beings who referred to emotional energy, especially intense reactive states, as loosh. And they described it as a highly desirable substance, something harvested from human beings. So the idea is that our experiences, especially those steeped in fear, pain, ecstasy, or deep emotional resonance, generate energetic outputs that certain entities feed on. So from that lens, Earth isn't just a planet, it's a farm. And we consciously or unconsciously are generating food for those entities. So, do you have any thoughts on what this might mean for us, Annelise and Parker?
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me because I spent a lot of time diving down the Gnosticism view of that the early Christians held, and they pretty much held that view that that's reality. And I'll dive into that more in detail later, as far as like from their scriptures and things, what they said. But I feel it. I feel definitely preyed upon energetically in certain situations more than others, and during certain certain times of the cycles of the moon, even. So it makes a lot of sense to me, a lot more sense than just you're here and you're a sinner, and if you have depression or anxiety, it's just because you're doing something wrong. I definitely see there are beings that feed off of those emotions. Definitely. It's a trippy thing to think about or explain, but stick around, and I think it'll start making sense to other people too.
We've always talked about this, just the duality part of things with beings of light, beings of darkness, and some of these beings of darkness can be labeled as demons or jinn, however you would say it in like the Muslim culture. But to me, they're all the same kind of same entities. They're doing the same thing. They're sucking the energy from that person if they're possessed in a Christian or in a religious sense, or if they're being energy harvested in a spiritual sense. It's all literally the same thing wrapped in just different language. I personally believe there's beings of darkness that aren't connected to source because they're looking for that energy or that food substance or whatever, and that is what the loosh is. That's what our emotions produce. And when you think like if you think about our emotions and our energy and what we've always talked about in this podcast about manifesting and stuff, I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. So, you know, if you're a negative entity and you're looking for some kind of powerful source of like energy consumption, here Earth would be the place, I would imagine.
Yeah. And our earliest creation story from the ancient Sumerian tablets, it depicts this story of lower beings taking over this divine creation and using them as a food source or as a labor source, but then as an energetic food source, and keeping them in low levels of suffering and pain and all the things, because that's their food source, because they're not connected to God. Like Parker said, they're not connected to source. They're a cut off, I guess, by choice, you know, a cut off entity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, fascinating. And, you know, you were mentioning, Parker, you mentioned like demons or jinn, or people have different names for what these entities might be. But my sources through the veil refer to something that they call telepathic energy devourers. And they just say TED. Well, we call them TEDs, TEDs, and they are different than demons. They do the same thing. They basically feed off of negative energy and harvest it off of humans. But I feel like it's more structured. I feel like demons are just kind of out there as bottom feeders, just maybe feeding on energy inadvertently. But those TEDs, I feel like it's way more structured and way more diabolical. Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is if we live in this Loosh farm, like a reality rigged to provoke suffering, division, or reactive emotion, it really just starts to shift how we interpret the patterns of human history. And I think these TEDs are involved in the patterns of human history, like intentionally creating certain situations or environments just so that they can harvest this loosh. More advanced intelligence. The TEDs, according to my grandmother, are advanced intelligence beings. And so like when you start looking at like wars or media, the hysteria in media, systemic oppression, even personal trauma, it might not even be random like we think or purely human made. I believe that it's, engineered or at least sustained by these forces who benefit from our turmoil. So, and I'm also thinking like principalities and powers of Scripture, the unseen forces that dominate the world. I mean, we all probably feel the pull toward ideas, thoughts, or inclinations that we know are not helping us raise our consciousness. And there's certainly an unseen element at play in how we navigate the world. That doesn't mean we're powerless, but it might mean that we're more powerful than we realize. The fact that loosh is harvested, I think, implies that it's valuable.
Right.
They're advanced entities that, like you said, created this system to harvest all the fear or all the panic, anything that really high intensity ecstasy or love, and in some cases, just high emotion, pretty much. So yeah, I think they're aliens as well. I don't think they're necessarily spiritual. I think they're entities.
Yeah. I feel like this is the perfect spot to share this little excerpt. Could I do that? Would y'all mind?
Sure.
Okay, because it says exactly what we're saying, but it's from Adam. It's in the Nag Hammadi, the book, The Revelation of Adam. So he's talking to Seth, his son, who I want to describe this too in a little bit, who Seth is versus Cain and Abel. But he's speaking to Seth, and he says, after God created me out of the earth, along with your mother Eve, I went about with her in glory that she had beheld in the eternal realm we had come from. So, Brandy, like you've talked about, like they came from a higher realm. They weren't in bodies. Now they are. She instructed me in the knowledge of the eternal God. We resembled the great eternal angels, for we were superior to the God who had created us, and the powers with him who we did not know. So they're talking about, in Gnosticism, they call it the demiurge, this fallen entity that messed with the original creation of source God, Adam and Eve. So God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, angrily divided us, and then we became two beings. So that's the fall, I would think, separation. And the glory in our hearts departed from your mother Eve and me, as did the previous knowledge that breathed in us. The glory fled from us and entered another great eon and another great generation. So eons in Gnosticism, eons are like, you could think of them as angels or the sparks of God. But then archons are something created by the lower God that interfered with God's creation, the demiurge, Yahweh. The archons are his. And they said, for this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that human who is the seed of the great generation, or from whom it comes. And after those days, the eternal knowledge of God, of the God of truth, left your mother Eve and me. And from then on, we learned about mortal things like human beings. So in the Gnostic telling, which kind of parallels the ancient Sumerian tablets, somebody interfered, like we've talked about. We can call it Yahweh, Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, an archon. Like, there's just so many names throughout mythology and tellings of this story to sum it up. But the archons are totally paralleled in my mind to these Loosh farmers. The archons are the Loosh farmers, and we are the souls, the divine light sparks trapped in these now physical bodies. And the Nag Hammadi says that Adam and Eve, Seth was their son, like a divine spark of God's son, but that Cain and Abel came from the archons defiling Eve, and that was their child, like a hybrid child. So it's pretty wild if you read this stuff, but just to look at how it parallels with this idea of Loosh Farms is just so they match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I mean, and really, because when we begin to see, like you were saying, aliens, and that's it, advanced intelligence beings. And when you begin to see it that way, there is a component that goes all the way back to the beginning, right? And these advanced intelligence beings, what some would call aliens, they really are in these higher dimensions in a way where they're not seen to the human eye down in this lower dimension, this 3D world of form. We don't see them, but they're there. And so it would make sense also when you begin to kind of pair that with that language of principalities and powers in the air. In the Bible is what they're called. Well, they're actual rulers of the air. They, in the sense that they're there and they have dominion and they have authority, but we don't see them and we don't intuit them with our 3D senses. But they are pulling some strings, and in some ways we are participating with them. I guess I kind of want to say I don't believe that they are just harvesting loosh from humans without human choice in the matter. I believe that we do come into alignment with them in ways maybe that may be unconscious to some of us, but I believe that we do open ourselves up to it. I believe that we have some agency and that we can take back power over our lives, and realizing that we live in a Loosh farm doesn't mean we fall into fear. I believe it invites a radical awakening. It's a call to be aware of where our energy is going and what we're giving our attention to and how we emotionally react. I mean, if our energetic outputs are the real currency of this realm, then sovereignty means learning to master our state of existence, our emotional state. It means no longer being a battery plugged into someone else's system. So, yeah, I think for those on a mystical path, especially those coming from a Christ-centered or post-Christian background, it just it opens a powerful question. What does liberation look like in a reality where even your emotions are prey, right?
Yeah, we are the battery for these entities. And when you, like you just said, and I personally have had to master this, and I still haven't mastered it, to be honest. Like, it's just something I've had to really fully recognize first, and then you can go on to just seeing how you can try to master it. But the whole, you get mad, you explode. Okay, well, you know what? That's a massive currency of loosh right there. So just like you said, mastering your emotions is the main thing. And that really is the main thing, I would say, one of the main things of life, to be honest. Once you do that, gosh, if you can control yourself, you can control your life. And then therefore, I would say your life is a lot better than opposite. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if everything's like frequency, I kind of see it as the way you can get away from the Loosh farmers, quote, or the potent influence of them is don't vibrate where they vibrate. And I think it was Bob Marley said that complaints are prayers to Satan or prayers to the devil. And therefore, I guess gratitude, that's a a proper prayer to who we call God. So, but complaints and negativity and falling into that focus on anything that kills your joy, that feeds them and hurts you. So if you can look at it that way, it helps you reset your attitude because you don't want to feed, this. If you need to think of it this way, you don't want to feed the dark spiritual realm. They feed off your nasty attitude. They feed off your fear, your suffering, your all the things. So choosing to vibrate higher than that will make you not as much on their radar. They'll go feed on something else, somebody on the street who's suffering now, and I believe they do. I believe in areas of homelessness and drug abuse and all of that. That's just Loosh central.
Yeah.
But don't make yourself prey. Don't be on the side of their road looking like a good roadkill with all your bad attitude, because they love that. They love that.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't feel good, you don't feel thankful, you don't feel, try to put it out there anyway, and things can change.
Yeah. I think it's just about like what Parker was saying, just having agency, control over yourself. It's not that these emotions don't arise. That's the human experience, right? We're never going to get to a point where we don't experience unfavorable emotions as they arise. The point is to not get caught up in their drama. And see, that's where we lose our agency, because then we begin to react to stimuli all around us from a very emotional or an emotionally charged state of existence. So it's about, just having the agency to respond instead of react. And take control of our lives, because one of the most consistent patterns in this human experience is the dominance of fear and suffering and chaos. I mean, it's almost as if we're born into a script that just insists on this struggle. And I think it was Richard Rohr that said, negative thoughts are like Velcro, and positive thoughts are like Teflon. And that really is it. It's so much easier to meditate and ruminate on the negative than it is to, have the positive thought be something that we continually place our awareness on. And I think I heard someone say it takes like less than a second for a negative thought to like take root and become part of our, mental narrative. But we have to think a positive thought for so many seconds. It's 3 to 6 seconds, something like that, for it to begin to take root. So negativity is definitely the easier route. It's this where we're most inclined to go if we don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Parker, isn't that what our older son said while we're working on this whole choose positive attitude? He said, but that's harder. He said, that's harder to choose, to not listen to the negative, grouchy thoughts. That's harder. And I said, yeah, I know. That's why not many people do it. And that's why the way is narrow. And I'm not just talking about just empty positive thinking. I'm talking about like knowing that there's an enemy out there for your energy, for your awareness, and choosing not to play the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that saying comes to mind, the whole just be the watcher, just be the watcher of yourself, just like, listen, once you know this stuff, and you'll be able to see like, oh man, I'm really about to get angry here. Okay, now I'm just going to just sit back and then let it pass. Now I'm going to go on a whole psychedelic rant, because this happened to me back when, I don't know, a couple of years ago. But I took a psilocybin experience, and it was very interesting. It was very, very cool. But one of the main things I got from it was it's hard to explain, but in my mind, I was like under this ocean of emotion, pretty much. And when I was there, I was like under this sea. And as the waves were rolling like over me, I'm like looking up, and these waves are rolling over. This like Eon, he called himself Eon, came on and said, you see these waves rolling over you? That's how your emotions should be. That's how you should, treat your emotions, because they're nothing more than just a fleeting thing. And now, listen, if you would have known me back then, I would have never said that. I would have never came up with the word Eon. I would have never said any of that.
Yeah. And that's crazy that, and then I just told you in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, so the scriptures not in the Bible, they call those beings of light eons, Aeon, eon. Yeah. When Parker did his psychedelic experience, he'd never read the Nag Hammadi, and I never told him about what I was reading. And a being named Eon just called himself Eon, which means, millions and millions of years.
Yeah.
Eon came and was his guide during that. So I find that very interesting because eons are the beings of light, archons are the beings of darkness who you know, in this theory are feeding off of our negative energy.
I was having a hard time just pretty much just regulating myself, you know, my emotions, just the same things everybody really kind of has trouble with sometimes, you know, and that was when I got knocked upside the head with the whole, like, you are the watcher of your emotions, you know, you are the voice in your head when you talk. You're not like this person talking right now, you know, you're the being inside your head that's when your mouth is closed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're the one you're looking for too. That's what got me when I found that out. When I had that realization during the psilocybin experience, is that you are it. It is within you. And that's what in the Nag Hammadi, Jesus tells his disciples, exactly what you're looking for to fix you is inside of you right now. It's within you. Like that light source of God is what even gives you awareness. But don't give that awareness to the loosh farmers because they don't have that awareness. They don't. And so they want yours.
They're like a parasitic entity pretty much, right, Brandy?
Yeah, that's it exactly. They're unseen architects is what I would say, and they're kind of pulling the strings. They have a vested interest in a collective emotional baseline of fear and reaction. So that explains a lot of what we see going on in the world. I mean, that's why it's so hard to break these cycles, I think.
Yeah.
And it's why trauma seems to replicate itself generationally. It's also why I would say media and institutions constantly pull us into these states of urgency and despair. Suffering is maintained because it feeds something beyond the visible. And I think our awareness is the first crack in this system. The moment we start to see the pattern, we begin to slip through it, right? We can distance ourselves. Like Parker was saying, we're not our thoughts and emotions. We're the awareness behind those thoughts and emotions. Those thoughts and emotions arise like waves in the ocean, and we can just let them be, just let them, arise and dissipate. It's when we get caught up in their drama that our lives are complicated. But if loosh is emotional energy, it's not just the dark that's valuable, right? I mean, we have to, the flip side of everything, because there's always two sides to that coin, right? Joy, love, peace, ecstasy, those are powerful frequencies too. So the question is, who harvests those? Or are there beings or systems that feed on beauty or harmony and devotion in the same way that others might feed on fear and pain? Or do maybe those energies self-sustain, creating resonant fields that uplift rather than extract? I mean, some would say that higher dimensional entities are nourished by our joy, like not in a parasitic way, but as co-creators of beauty. So I'd say maybe that we're not just generating loosh, we're broadcasting music, if you would. And and someone out there is maybe listening. So what we put out, I think has a resonance with entities far beyond us, whether it be for good or for ill. And I believe we cultivate a team around us, whether it be a team of light, which is what I often refer to my team as, a team of light. But alternately, there could be a team of dark if you're stuck in those cycles of trauma and fear and judgment and blame. Yeah, so I think it's just definitely about where we place our awareness.
Absolutely. And we've all met people and Brandy, you and I recently know of someone who is surrounded by negative entities, but unknowingly. They don't know it, but they're feeding their essence away, not knowing it. Not knowing, is this something negative? Is this something positive? And you can see it. You can see when people are carrying something heavy upon their spirit, and when their burden is light, And I don't know that our love and our joy, feeds anything. To me, it's more like, that's the natural language of the universe. Like, if you're doing it right, you're vibrating at love, joy, and peace. If you're following that way, I guess, that will bring you to contentment and your most authentic self, then you will have love, joy, and peace, which just sings, like you said, sings with the universe, sings with the same songs the birds are singing with. This morning, our younger son asked me, why do the birdies sing all the time? Why do the birdies sing all the time? And I thought about it, and I said, I don't know. I guess it's just natural. That's what they're made to do. They love to do it. And I think that's how we're made to vibrate, but we're stuck in a system that ensures that we vibrate very low and in fear and suffering. But that's not what we're here to do. at all.
I think both. Just
Yeah.
like it feeds the lower entities because they have no connection to that source. So this is their source, the energy, the loosh. I also think the higher density beings, or maybe beings that are here to watch us or to help us transition into higher states of being or states of creation, they look down, and like Annelise and Brandy are saying, they hear the songs of joy, they hear the vibration of peace and joy and love, and that's enough. That's light. But on the other end, like I said, these entities they're feeding off of energies. And also, like, going back to your original question, Brandy, like, yeah, I think also that you can have moments of, like, what you would say, like, ecstasy, or like, if you do drugs and you get that ecstasy feeling, that's one thing I'm talking about. If you're fornicating all the time, having sex maybe with random people or whatever, whatever. That is another thing. That's a huge one, actually, to be honest. That the orgasm alone is the biggest explosion of loosh there is. So I just have to throw that out there,
You can sew it away to feed dark realms or light realms, because that's
Yeah.
a big energetic, like a sacred energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's in the spikes too, what you're saying, Parker. There are people who are addicted to sex and they're out there chasing that high, but it's momentary. And then it dissipates. And usually the lows that follow are much lower than the high ever could be. Same thing with drug. Any addiction is like that. It's that cycle of chasing the next, surge of ecstasy and then coming off of it and feeling completely depleted. And I think that's what those loosh farmers are actually harvesting. It's those spikes, those, those surges of ecstasy. Yeah. And I think the answer might lie also in the nature of love as an energetic frequency. Like, unlike fear, which contracts and isolates, love expands and connects, right? Fear is chaotic, volatile, and easier to manipulate. And love, especially the unconditional kind, it's stable and it's self-generating. Like what Annelise was saying, it doesn't just emit energy, it transforms systems. So while fear could be extracted like a resource, love might be harder to consume without being changed by it. So perhaps it's dangerous to them, these loosh farmers, because then they would be transformed in some way from service to self into service to others, and they don't want that. They want to remain service to self and keep an energy source consistent with that vibration. So they keep people stuck in these cycles. Really, it's addictive cycles, because even if you're not addicted to pornography or drugs or what we would consider, something bad, you could be addicted to food. You can be addicted to entertainment. You could be addicted to work. You could be addicted to church. And so whatever your addiction is kind of fueling an emotional resonance. We do things, we're addicted to things because it makes us feel a certain kind of way, right? There's a surge of ecstasy in whatever it is. And so we just keep chasing that high. Yeah.
That is what we're talking about, and that, listen, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Listen, it's okay to feel that way as long as you're vibrating in a high scent. Like, this is how I picture it, okay? I'm sure a lot of us have seen the Harry Potter movies, right? And remember when those Dementors are like coming down, trying to suck Harry Potter's soul away? And he's like, expecto patronum or whatever. And that big blast of light comes out. If you have that big blast of light, these little bastards won't be able to come and suck your energy out. Yeah. And you can eat that donut.
So there's nothing wrong with having the donut. It's when the donut has you, right? So that's the thing. Anything. Like, we can enjoy things and we can have ecstasy. We're supposed to. That's part of the human experience. It's just that we like it too much. And then we get out of balance and we start to chase that high. And then ultimately it drives us right into the ground, right? Too many donuts will kill you. Too much alcohol will kill you. But one donut, that's fine. It's about balance. It's about, having control of yourself, like you were saying, Parker. Yeah.
I saw this really disturbing kind of video meme type thing. And it was supposed to make you think, but it was cows raising us as their products. And so it was cartoony. But the cows were bigger, we were smaller, and they were sucking us dry for every little thing we had, putting us through machines to process us for meat, the milk, the everything, pumping us full of hormones and just junk to make us juicier. And it was really disturbing. But then it made me think, oh gosh, well, number one, poor cows. But number two, The people are us. The people were being Loosh Farmed, like just everything they can take from you emotionally, so like your algorithm on your phone, you're scrolling, it's sucking something out of you. Like there's a reason I think that the Apple on the back of our iPhones, with the bite out of it, I think there's a reason that that's the symbol on the back of these things that take all of our awareness. I think that this plays a big role in our suffering, our mental suffering, staying on this phone all the time. And I'm as guilty of overdoing phone time as anybody. But yeah, that little video just really depicted it well. I'll have to see if I can find that and link that, because it was so disturbing, but in all the right ways.
If the key to happiness and the key to not having your energy sucked out is basically to be in the moment, yeah, that phone is, taking you out of the moment for sure. All of us out of the moment for real. Just if we're being honest with each other here, like I'm sure all of us have spent hours on their phone today,
I saw a thing too, and it said you would be shocked at how much of your mental suffering disappears if you just put your phone down. I mean, really put it down, like don't use it anymore as much as you use it. And gosh, I have just as hard a time doing that as anybody. But I do notice that there's a lot more peace without it, pulling out my awareness. Even if it's awareness to good things. Like you said, Brandy, they keep us on a roll of panic and fear.
Yeah.
Or lack. Oh, I don't have that, they have that. Oh, I don't have that, they have that. Oh, just these. The more you scroll, the more you hate yourself. So it's really not good for you. It's not. But here we are. We keep doing it because that's life now. Maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Maybe even that's that law, that universal law, like as above, so below. Like we're down here consuming everything we can freaking get, and maybe these things are consuming us as we consume that, like consume our emotions, as we enjoy or hate this,
Yeah. If they can, because they can actually suck your loosh through a phone, through your own phone, through your own algorithm. That's wild. That's wild. Even if you're watching stuff you think you love, it's so entertaining, it's something you're interested in. I never feel better after hours or, lengthy time, even if it was something of high value. So just some thoughts on that.
I think it's why Jesus was speaking so provocatively against the systems of his day. I mean, both the religious and the political. He was repeatedly warning of mass destruction if people didn't wake up and reclaim their own energy, right? As long as we conform to the world's way of operating, we stay stuck in that Loosh farm, and he knew it. Oh, I mean, he wouldn't have used that, terminology, but he spoke of the systems in a way that was relevant to his listeners. Honestly, church is maybe one of the biggest Loosh farms. Look at how fear-based it is. I mean, it keeps people stuck in those lower levels of consciousness while generating prime loosh. And that really is a disturbing revelation when you really stop and think about it. Like the devil doesn't care if you go to church as long as you don't raise your vibration. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Forgive me if y'all have heard this before on the podcast, but when you see like a sign at a church that says, God lives here, or if you see a sign on the church that says, do you know God? Because tomorrow's never promised. It's like, my goodness, dude, do you think God really likes that sign? Do you think God is like, trying to force people into this like building to worship this entity that's living in this building?
Sadly, they do. They do. Yeah.
What I didn't realize, during my time like seeped in it was, when we're doing things like wearing crosses around our necks or having the large crosses in front of our sanctuaries and constantly thinking about, gosh, I'm such an awful, dirty sinner, and thank God Jesus did this for me. That is putting out such negative energy. And they can feed on that, and that's not what Jesus did not come here to condemn, but to save, to bring peace. And but like you said, in church, that's not really what we're focused on. Not really. It's feeling badly about something we could never have controlled. And it's focusing on that. Parker told me earlier today, he said, I saw a meme of Jesus
Hold on.
like holding a guy by the shoulders.
We all go around thinking that like I have a tattoo of a cross on my body. And Annelise probably has a she has a tattoo of a cross. Everybody has crosses on their walls and everything. Okay. All right, Annelise. Sorry, I had to give that backstory context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jesus grabs the guy by the shoulders, he said, and just says, do you really think I like crosses?
Right.
Why are you wearing this? Why are you focusing on, like, that's like putting a noose on your back as a tattoo. Like, why are we doing this? Which I can't talk. I got a cross tattooed behind my ear, and, it all means, we know what it means to us. We
Yeah.
do. We know it's the intention, but I guess the humor behind it is, I don't think Jesus would really want to see that around all the time. I know we've made it
His
into this
love or
thing of,
something.
but it
Yeah.
represents this and that. But what if to Loosh farmers, no, it represents sadness and death and suffering of your beloved Savior. So focus on that all the time, and then we'll harvest that.
Yeah, I think it really just depends on how we process it. Like, I see the cross and I think of it as, dying to the self so that the
Yeah.
true self comes. So it's not in a negative connotation in a sense. It's about that individuation process, the horizontal connection with God, that vertical connection with all others. And so it's a reminder that the ego self has to die in order
Yeah.
for the true self to come fully alive, resurrect. And so for me, it evokes that kind of feeling or that kind
Yeah.
of message. But yeah, if you're using the cross or any other symbol or religion to keep yourself stuck in lower levels of emotion, lower levels of thought processes, sin and lack. If that's what it evokes, oh, I'm such a sinner. Oh, I'm lacking anything in myself, that's worthy of divine love, then yeah, it's keeping you stuck in those lower levels of loosh. And so you're just being harvested. And so I would say that a lot of theology is really just prime loosh farming propaganda. It keeps people stuck in those cycles of suffering and those cycles of sin and lack, focus on the sin and the lack. So church is really not liberating
Yeah.
people.
Stuck at
It's
that
just
same
keeping
level
people
of never
stuck for the most
ascending.
part.
Mhm. That's it.
Yeah.
I hate that. I really hate that because the people there don't want to be stuck or
No.
deceived. I
No, they want to go to heaven. That's why they're
yeah.
signed up, right? They're wanting to go to heaven. It's just that their theology is keeping them from it.
Like they'll get you just close enough, but then trap you to so you can't really use your divine energy for
Right.
higher things. And it's the people in church that those are my people that we want to do right. We want to serve. We want to be the best versions of ourselves we can be for God's glory, so to speak, quote quote. And I see that as a much more broad thing now than I used to. Doing something for God's glory. But so it's time to pull the curtain back for sure and make people aware of this. It sounds so kooky that most people that are still in like Matrix mind won't believe it, but it's really not. It's really not. It makes a lot more sense than everything else.
Like, when is the last time you ever felt ascended? Like, from where you are, like, when's the last time you ever were like, wow, I really transcended my life the past month? Not that Sunday, but the past month. You feel like a higher being. You feel connected to God. Not like hardly anybody feels that way, to be honest. And
Yeah, like an abiding peace and joy. You hear that in church, that to be in Christ is to be joyful and to have an abiding peace. Not that we don't have traumas that happen. I mean, if you live in this world, you're going to have sad things happen and you're going to feel the gamut of the human emotions. But by and large, I mean, as Christians, aren't we supposed to be more joyful? Aren't we supposed to have a hope and a faith that transcends all of these, temporary worldly difficulties? But how many people do you really know who are living that out, who are experiencing that is their lived reality? I know I sat in church every Sunday, every time the doors were open, completely committed at one time, trying desperately to have that kind of abiding peace. And it was very elusive. If anything, the theology was the main obstacle, because it would give you spiritual whiplash to try to, the dissonance between, the different theological nuances. They'll tell you one thing that kind of doesn't add up with something else. And it's like, how am I supposed to live with a sense of peace? And it's because it keeps us separated from ourself. And it keeps us, being harvested for loosh. So really the only path into that abiding peace is back into yourself. It's individuation, is doing your shadow work. And sadly, the church just creates a bigger shadow. Instead of people doing their shadow work, it's like, I think it was Ken Wilber said that the church is mainly just the ego self dressed in drag. And that's it. You know, they're polishing the exterior, trying to be the good self and just creating a bigger shadow. And it's the shadow that keeps us from wholeness, from peace, from equanimity.
Oh,
When you have a
gosh,
system
yeah.
that says like, you know, meditation is evil, or don't look within because you could have a demon talking to you, or what? I mean, okay. So you're telling me like not to trust my inner Christos, my being, my holy temple being. You're telling me not to trust that, but to trust you, an outsider middleman. Like your profession is a middleman, you know, and that's what you're trying to tell me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was thinking that maybe we should switch gears a little bit and give the church a rest. That's always we could sit here and talk about that all day long. But something that kind of came to my mind about Loosh Farms is the
Yeah.
Monsters Inc. movie, and I'm sure you guys have seen it because you have children. Yeah, it's it might seem like a cute kids movie on the surface, but when you look at it like through an esoteric lens, it's practically a blueprint for loosh farming. And I didn't
That's
realize it
right.
when I first saw it, of course. I don't think, you guys probably
No.
didn't either. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, there's an entire dimension of beings that survive by harvesting emotional energy from children. Like they sneak into their bedrooms, provoke fear, and collect their screams as fuel. I mean, that's loosh, pure distilled emotional charge used to power an entire like monster civilization.
A
Yeah.
realm.
And
Like a whole
yeah,
different
and
realm.
that's right. Yeah, the
Isn't
beings
that
doing
wild?
the harvesting weren't all evil, too. I think that's interesting to kind of note. They're just trapped in that system that depends on that extraction. So they're just in the system, too, just like we're in the system. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's fascinating. What do you guys think
it
about Monsters,
is.
Inc.?
Yeah. If anyone knows Monsters Inc., it is Parker and myself.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you last night, Brandy, our younger son, he lived off that movie during a time when nothing else would soothe his colicky soul. And we've seen that movie, the original, and then Monsters Inc. The second, where they go to Monsters University, where they go to college and learn how to be scarers.
Yeah.
And I loved those movies. They gave him so much joy, me so much joy. But then Parker started telling me a couple years ago about this horribly disturbing thing that many of you, I'm sure, know about, called adrenochrome, and how it is linked to the Monsters Inc. movie. And it just took me peeking into that for like 2 seconds before I had to put the phone down and say no more Monsters Inc. Because I definitely think there's subliminal messaging, but it is quite an adorable way to tell the kids like how they get you. It's with the doors and how you can go into the rooms and do something and then disappear, but really portals. They can come in and out as they please. And like you said, the monsters in the movie, Sully and Mike, they don't know they're doing something wrong. This is their realm. This is what they went to college to learn to do. They got their doctorates in this, but then, the story goes, they make friends with the little girl Boo, and she's so adorable and sweet. They realize we don't want to be scarers. We don't want to do this. We want to get giggles, not screams. And so Mike becomes by the end of the movie, Mike's a comedian alien that goes in and makes the kids laugh. And they bottle that up and use that as their quote, quote, loosh. And to me, that's like a cutesy way of saying one day the Spirit of Christ comes back and that's our loosh now, is giggles and joy and laughter. But it's all very disturbing, all to say the least. But yes, to answer your question, I know that movie very well. Parker.
Yeah, and I watched that movie a million times. Sometimes that movie played on repeat 2 or 3 times a day. Not on purpose, just did.
All
And
day.
when I found out about the adrenochrome, that made me sick in my stomach because I watched that movie so many times. I just kind of thought, oh, it's a fun Disney movie, just like every other Disney movie, right? Until you like get into how dark the Walt Disney actually was, him being a Freemason, all the subliminal messaging and all of the things that we've talked about karmic cycles, about how they try to tell you what's going on as they're doing it, or maybe even before they do it. But this, in this case, I believe is as they're doing it. They are no doubt about it, sitting there telling everybody and every child to their face, like, this is how we get adrenochrome. And you know what? Listen, nobody comes up with about that movie without something like that, you know? And going back to our episode of the Loosh, yeah, just like Annelise said, they're getting the energy to pump their realm, you know? It's energy for them, regardless.
Yeah.
I want to say, too, children, I think one reason that movie was for children and it wasn't a Monsters, Inc. version for adults is because children do believe. Children do see
That's
those
true.
entities. Children do see those entities in their closets and under their beds because I hate to say it, but sometimes they are. It's these spiritual entities, and parents think they're not real, and the children see it. It's all rooted in a little bit of truth. You know, it's not always an invisible boogeyman. And believe your kids when they say that, and pray over their rooms and cleanse their rooms and declare sovereignty over their rooms because they're after the children more than anybody. And I hate to say that. It's sickening. Like we've said, it's sickening.
Yeah.
But
Well, their energy is more pure.
Yeah.
It's a purer, more distilled energy. So it makes sense that they would, these theme parks, like you were saying, Disney, but not just Disney, all of this stuff that's designed for the spikes of emotion, you know, and to evoke that in children, theme parks are designed around that. I mean, take a walk through a theme
Or hear
park, and you don't
screams.
even have to ride on a ride, and you'll walk out of the place exhausted.
That's true.
It's just, you know, like, from just, the energetic pull, you know, you can walk through and there's just an energetic drain in places like that. They're designed that way. And I think, you know, at one time I would not have even seen it, but now it's just so blatantly obvious how organized it really is. And like in the movie, Monsters, Inc., you know, they're clocking in and out. There are quotas and machines, like policies. Fear is not random. It's institutionalized. So yeah, I think it mirrors the ideas of our own worldly systems. They're structured loosh harvesting machines, and most
They know
don't
they're
even
doing it.
question it because it's just the way things are, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just caught up in it.
Brandy, don't be too surprised or don't judge when you come visit in a couple weeks and you see all my Mike and Sully toys laying around.
I can't wait. I can't wait. We're gonna have to. I haven't seen the university one. I saw the original Monsters Inc., but I haven't seen the other one.
That's the worst part about it. It's so cute. It's so good. The
can't wait to watch.
soundtrack's so good, and that's how they get you. They
Yeah.
make the most evil, little, sinister, secret
Yes.
things so attractive.
It's
And,
disclosure, right? Like Parker was
yeah.
saying, it's that but they're trying to avoid their karma, and so it's disclosure. They're putting it in the movies, they're putting it in the media, they're putting the message out.
a
Most
fun
people
movie,
just
yeah.
disregard, like, oh, that's just fiction, that's just, you know, nonsense. Yeah, but the truth is in the fiction, folks.
Yeah. But I will never forget watching our son. I mean, he bounced in his bouncer a full, like, year and a half watching that movie. Now, let me clarify, because that sounds bad.
It was just
We
his
did
happy
not leave our
spot.
child in a bouncer for a year. What? It was his happy spot. It was the only thing that would calm this boy down. So I don't know what it was, but I'm glad we got a good look into it. We can talk on it.
Yeah. Well, I think you do what works. I mean, as a parent, you know, if there's
Yeah.
something that is soothing and you know, it looks cute. I like the movie too. And, you know, if you don't know that there's some sort of dark message in it,
Yeah.
then you think, yeah, why not let him watch what, you know, watch, have a good time.
That's right.
Um,
Have a good time before you learn about adrenochrome. I mean, because after that,
enjoy it while you can.
enjoy it while you can. After that,
Yeah.
none of these movies are fun. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess as we wrap up, you know, maybe we should talk about how do we get liberated from these dark entities that are harvesting our energy.
or how,
Yeah.
Brandy, please tell me, because there are
Yeah.
times where I want to break free. There are times where I feel like I avoid the influence, but other times I'm caught in their grips, and I pray over myself, and I sage, and I sing, and I do my sound bowls and all the things. But is there a way to fully avoid them, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're all influenced by them deeply. And I think we all are going to be caught in their grip to some degree. And so we're going to have to come out of it. there's no way to avoid it entirely. And I think the church shrinks away from the idea of Christ consciousness, saying it's evil, and pushes people toward moral, like a moral goodness as a spiritual identity. But in reality, our vibration, our energetic currency is all that really matters. And Christ consciousness is about energetic mastery. And in a reality where Loosh is harvested through fear and division and reactive emotion, Christ consciousness is like a cosmic firewall. It doesn't resist the fear, it just transcends it. So I would say, it's about choosing peace and love and forgiveness and stillness in the face of these systems that demand chaos. That kind of presence that makes you unharvestable. You're no longer a battery in that matrix. You're a source.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say. You just have to unplug. Like, it's just like the Matrix movie where he wakes up out of the shell, and everybody's still asleep, but he wakes up and he realizes like what he was in, like what we look at, the 3D, was a system, a Loosh system for these machines. But this Loosh system is like everybody's energy. And that's kind of how I think about it too. Like, it's not like, it may not be like there's an entity on me, but maybe that like every time I say like a cuss word or maybe punch the wall or anything that just exerts a lot of emotion, maybe just feeds it right into this system, just like a motherboard, pretty much, just like, and that's where they garner their energy, and so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of the crucifixion here. Like, at first glance, that the crucifixion, could be seen as an ultimate Loosh event, right? It's torture and betrayal and agony. But from a mystical perspective, it's a power move, right? Christ enters the machinery of suffering not to feed it, but to break it from the inside out. Like, he doesn't resist death, and by not resisting, he destroys it. So he models a path of inner authority that it's immune to manipulation. The resurrection isn't just about overcoming death. It's about overcoming fear. It says this system has no claim on me. And I think that's where it's at. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just end by saying that the kingdom of heaven is within. So yeah, just disengage from those systems that keep harvesting your Loosh. And take some agency, go within, and follow Christ into resurrection life. And thank you all for transcending this rabbit hole with us. As always, cosmic blessings and peace.
Of sleep, 'cause distraction is key. But as long as there is still a sun up in the sky, I can choose to live on the sunny side. It's somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. I was sleeping just fine peacefully inside my American dream, awoken when those puppet strings were cut right off. You can't ignore, share it, call you misinformed. I know the truth, but trying not to lose my mind. I'm somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song, and the state of humankind had me humming alone. Hello, common sense, I'm convinced we've lost our way. To the system, now there's power to reclaim. But as long as there's a